Thank you so much, and welcome. Um, I want to thank the Medical Center of the Americas for having us here today for the school reopening and impact on mental health um, presentation. And next slide, I will begin to introduce the goals for the day and the panelists. My name is Michael Kelly, and the purpose of this webinar is to introduce the idea of school reopening and mental health. We're pleased today to have with us three panelists and one moderator, Ms. Josie Guzman. Next slide, please. The goals for today will be for you to for us to introduce some of the mental health resources available in the El Paso area. And that'll include the El Paso Children's Hospital, the Child Guidance Center, and Emergence Health Network. We also hope to give some direct advice to the education community on how to handle some of the problems that arise with students and teachers during this tragic time, and identify ways to ensure that students come to school in a school environment that's supportive and positive and really setting them up for success. And then finally, we hope to further identify the needs of schools and educators that can be addressed, particularly around mental health. As we move forward, I want to remind you that the webinar is being recorded today, and you'll have plenty of opportunity to ask some questions, both in the chat box throughout and later on. Next, please. My name is Michael Kelly. I'm the Vice President of Programs at the Paso del Norte Health Foundation. I also serve periodically on faculty at both New Mexico State University and at UTEP. I've been at the foundation 20 years, and I essentially lead the grant-making portfolio. My PhD's in health education from Texas A&M University. Our moderator for today is Josie Angerstein Guzman, and she will be with us momentarily, helping facilitate our three panelists and fielding your questions. Next. I'm going to introduce Josie a little more fully at this point. She was born and raised in El Paso. She's a proud wife and of an entrepreneurial fitness enthusiast and loving mother of two, all of who keep her immensely busy and very active. She holds a bachelor's degree in French and education from the University of Texas at El Paso and a master's in educational management from New Mexico State University. In her 22 years as an educator, she's filled the role of teacher, assistant principal, and now proudly serves as the Clint Independent School District Director of Special Education. And she's also working on her superintendent certification at Sul Ross University, so welcome. Our three panelists you see pictures of here today. Celeste Nevadas is a licensed professional counselor supervisor. She currently serves as the Chief of Clinical Services at Emergence Health Network. In 2008, she graduated from Texas Tech University with a bachelor's degree in psychology and a minor in sociology. She continued her education at Arizona State University, and in 2010, earned her master's degree in counseling psychology. As a licensed professional counselor supervisor in the state of Texas, Celeste is supervised and has developed expertise in adolescent issues, the impact of trauma, and empowering women. She utilizes an array of modalities to serve her clients, including CBT, EMDR, and motivational interviewing. Thanks for being here today, Celeste. Next, we have Kathy Revtak, who is a licensed clinical social worker and supervisor with nearly 25 years experience working in the area of trauma. As a clinician and psychotherapist, she has directed service experience in a variety of practice settings, all connected to serving families and communities affected by trauma. She also has extensive teaching and training experience with the nonprofit community and the university level. She has considerable leadership experience and commitment to organizational systems change, and Kathy currently serves as the Director of Systems Care Services at El Paso Child Guidance Center. There she promotes trauma-informed care, which is a strength-based, resilience-focused therapy approach. She is responsible for various programs and projects that promote trauma-informed care within the Child Guidance Center and across the community. Key activities in which she engages through these initiatives include training, consultation, collective impact, advocacy, and evaluation. And she is a member of the center's executive team. Welcome, Kathy. I'm glad you're with us as a panelist. Our last panelist is Dr. Vanessa Velas. She earned a doctorate with an honors from the University of Arizona, has 10 years experience working with victims of child maltreatment, and she is currently the director of forensic medical provider for the El Paso Children's Hospital Center for Prevention of Child Abuse, or the CARES Clinic. Her dissertation, Implementing Child Maltreatment Prevention in the Clinical Setting, online learning tutorial for advanced practice nurses, paved the path to begin her study for a doctorate in nurse practice. She currently works with El Paso Children's Hospital and is a voice for the pediatric population. Dr. Velas obtained her postdoctorate forensic nursing certification from the University of California, Riverside. Dr. Velas is also certified by the Texas Office of the Attorney General to serve as a pediatric sexual assault forensic examiner. Her mission is to address the psychological and forensic medical needs of children who are victims of abuse. Dr. Velas is committed to providing the best care for children who are victims of abuse and neglect. Welcome, Dr. Velas. I'm glad you're here today with us. Next. At this point, we're going to allow the presenters to briefly say a few words and introduce their presentations, I think. So, Celeste Navarez, Ms. Navarez?
Hello, yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Celeste Nevadas. Thank you for graciously introducing me. Emergence Health Network is so excited to share some wonderful resources with all of you today. I know that all of us are trying our best to serve our community, our kiddos, and ourselves. And so we have a lot of different things to offer as support to you all. And we're thankful to be part of this opportunity and this conversation to share this with you. So let's go ahead and get started. So one of the programs that we have launched in response to COVID-19 is the Crisis Counseling Program. Now this grant is funded through FEMA. The state of Texas applied for it as a state, and we were awarded this grant and this program. And so Emergence Health Network, as a local mental health authority of El Paso, is hosting this program. So this is a fantastic program for a number of reasons. One, it is completely free. If somebody wants to call and speak to a crisis counselor specifically about COVID-19, and that can be a different call for anybody feeling stressed, frustrated, nervous, worried, anything, all the emotions, I keep calling it the emotional roller coaster that we have all been riding for the last 6 months. These 6 counselors are dedicated just to take those calls or video sessions so people can be connected in the comfort of their own home. We don't want to interrupt, school services, anything like that, but we do want to be able to provide that support to anybody and everybody. So it's free. The other great option is that you can remain anonymous. I understand that unfortunately, there continues to be a stigma around mental health. And while everybody I know who's on this panel and clearly here as a participant is trying to change that and reduce that stigma, I know that it still exists. So folks can call and be anonymous if you want to. I'm thinking about law enforcement, first responders, our medical professionals that maybe don't want their employers to know that they're reaching out. The option to remain anonymous is available. So anything and everything. This is also open to children. I can't tell you enough how many phone calls and voicemails and emails I'm getting about how do I talk to my kids about this. And the truth of the matter is we're all going through it together. And this is the first time for everybody. So that can be tough as both a parent and an educator trying to provide that information. So if a child or an adolescent wants to just talk to somebody on the phone and process through those emotions, we're here to listen to that. And the way that you can access that is calling our hotline 779-1800 and asking to speak with a CCP counselor. FEMA has typically awarded CCP grants after a natural disaster, so things like Hurricane Harvey, Laura coming up and all of those things going on. So this is the first time that a CCP grant has been issued across all 50 states at the exact same time. So this resource is available to everybody within the state. You know, everybody has their own hotline set up, obviously, but we're happy to be able to provide this to the El Paso region. So wanted to share that information with you all first and foremost. I can share the next slide. We have our crisis hotline, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays included. This is any mental health crisis. So anything that you or your children or your colleagues might be experiencing, we're here to serve that. That has not gone away. These crisis services are also free of charge. So if anybody needs to reach out at 3 in the morning to speak to somebody, we're here to answer those calls as well and either get them connected to ongoing services if they need it, or if they just need a quick sort of de-escalation and breathe, because I'm sure all of us need to do that from time to time. Next slide for me. Our website. So this is our EHN website. There is so much information to get connected to different services. We have partial hospitalization services. We have veteran services. We have children's services, anything and everything. Our website is going to be a great hub for you to be able to navigate and get folks connected to those resources. One of the things I wanted to share, and I don't have a slide for it because we just went live yesterday, is our new, it's CCP, so our crisis counseling specifically for COVID, virtual relaxation room. I'll be sharing that resource with Emma to be able to send out with all of you post panelist chat. But the CCP virtual room is fantastic. It has guided meditation, breathing techniques, different calming activities that you can utilize because we're all going through this together, or you can share with your students or your colleagues and trying to fill up some of our kiddos' time with something that's not social media or the news. So again, that relaxation room is free of charge. It's accessible. It's ccprelaxation.org, but I'll be sending that out so that you guys can all have access to that and be able to utilize that along with all of the other wonderful resources that my fellow panelists will be sharing. I just know we can never come to enough resources, and I was really excited to share this one with you all today to be able to utilize on a daily basis if needed. So thank you again for having me. I look forward to answering some of y'all's questions and continuing this chat. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time and your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Nevadas. That was wonderful, and we're very happy you're here and representing the Emergence Health Network and all the great resources. Next is, I believe, Ms. Revtak. Ms. Revtak, are you next? Yes. From the El Paso Child Guidance Center. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly. I'm thrilled and happy to go next, but these, I think, are Dr. Velas' slides, so if you wouldn't mind.
That is right. That is right. I apologize for that. I got out of order there. Thank you, Kathy. Dr. Velas.
Yes.
Yes, El Paso Children's Hospital. Would you please take it away?
Yes, of course. So thank you for having me today. I am Dr. Vanessa Velas. I am the director and the forensic medical provider for the CARES Clinic here at El Paso Children's Hospital. The CARES Clinic is a child abuse clinic. We specialize in all forms of child maltreatment to include physical abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, domestic violence, drug exposure, anything that falls under the realm of child maltreatment. However, one of our big focuses of late is the prevention. I want to be able to work with our community to be able to have this prevention, this clinic that is available to families. I believe that in order to have happy, healthy pediatric patients, that it all comes from a family as a whole. So our goal and our mission here is to be able to assist the family as a whole, not just the child. So I wanted to share with you today some risk factors that you may be seeing. I always feel that teachers play such an important role and educators play such an important role in our pediatric population. For most kids, they have been isolated within the past 6 months, and sometimes for them, school is a safe haven. It's a safe place for them. And unfortunately, during this time of isolation, they have not been able to have that extended social support that they would find, such as with their teachers and coaches and mentors. So some risk factors to take into consideration are this is some form of child maltreatment is more likely to occur in homes where there is low socioeconomic status and unemployment, lack of social support and social isolation, conflict and or violence between spouses and partners. And these right here, these 3 factors that I just finished describing are right now high in our society. Because of COVID, some family members have lost jobs, they have become unemployed. There is now an increased lack of social support. Sometimes we have extended family, but because of the social isolation, we have not been able to have that extended support. And then there has been, unfortunately, an increase in domestic violence. A lot of times domestic violence, there's a misconception that it's just what happens between the parents or the caregivers. However, children are witnessing this violence, this domestic violence, and it affects them as a whole too. It's not just the parents, but it's the entire family. Sometimes you have siblings that are having to take care of their younger siblings. And so you can see how this can be such a big conflict on the entire family as a whole. There's also an increase in child maltreatment with children with special needs. And the child who is hard to comfort or challenging to raise. Sometimes this can be, the pediatrician usually comes into some form of support, but as I mentioned before, during these times with COVID, with the social isolation, the distancing from extended support groups such as the pediatricians, the difficult child who is now being stuck at home. Maybe we have a hyperactive child that is used to being rambunctious and running and playing and doing, or they're now isolated to one specific area. So although they're normal children, because of the circumstances, they have been limited to being confined to home, and this can cause some anxiety and some stress for the family as a whole. Abuse and neglect is also likely to occur when parents or caregivers have alcohol or substance abuse, have mental health problems, have low self-esteem or exhibit antisocial personality, and use more physical punishment than positive guidance. One of the things that I hear a lot here at the hospital is, as a parent, we have the right to be able to punish our children, which is absolutely correct. And my response to that is, yes, you do have the right to punish your children as you see fit. However, any mark or bruising lasting more than 24 hours on your child is excessive punishment. So sometimes it's just more about education, providing them with different types of punishment and providing them with the guidance that they need to be able to diminish some of the physical abuse that could take place. So as an educator, some things that you can be looking out for when these children do come back to school are bruises, bites, and welts, cuts, scratches, or abrasions. And Some of these can be developmentally appropriate. Sometimes you will see kids that, you know, they're active, they're rambunctious, they're, you know, climbing and jumping and doing. So they might present with some forms of bruises or cuts or scratches. The thing with children is if you ask them, oh, what happened there? They will open up to you and they will share with you, or you can see the change in their demeanor as far as not wanting to tell and be a little bit apprehensive as to why you're asking and feel that you're questioning them. A child that comes with poor hygiene, a child that is underweight or exhibits other signs of malnutrition, such as food insecurities. A child that is exhibiting food insecurities could be a child that perhaps a snack is passed out to the entire class. However, they decide to save it or eat it later. And so they're kind of just, you know, putting it aside. And so you ask, oh, you're not wanting to eat? And they say, no, I'm fine. And you see that this is a pattern where they're just saving the snack over time. Or it could be the opposite, where the child is eating this snack and is just eating it rapidly, that he cannot get to it fast enough. And one of the reasons for that is because they fear that they don't know when they're going to get another snack, or when they're going to get another meal, or if it's going to be taken away from them as they're eating it, possibly as a form of punishment. If a child presents to class and they're not dressed appropriately for the elements, this is also a big red flag. If it is 100 degrees outside and the child shows up to school with a sweater on, and you ask them, oh, aren't you hot? You don't want to remove your sweater? And the child is apprehensive. It could be that they could be hiding something underneath their clothing, or if it's, you know, dead of winter and they don't have a jacket on, or they're just not dressed appropriately for the cold, there could be something more going on. A child that has unattended physical problems or medical abandonment. If you see a child that has been possibly limping for days and possibly even weeks, and you ask them, oh, are you okay? You know, have you gone to the doctor? You know, I've seen you've been limping this whole time. Everything okay? Have you gotten that checked? And they just kind of, you know, brush it off and say, no, not right now. That could be, you know, medical abandonment, something that was not unattended to. I want you to keep something in mind, is that sometimes you got to look at other factors. It could be that there are other contributing factors as to why the child has poor hygiene, as to why the child is exhibiting underweight or other signs of malnutrition, why they're not dressed appropriately for the elements. It could be that they just financially, the family as a whole, does not have the means. This is still something that you can assist the family with. This is still something that you can talk to the family with, that you can let the mom know, you know, I noticed that Johnny has been coming and, you know, he's a little bit dirty. Is there anything that we can help you with? You know, when was the last time he took a bath? It could be that Johnny just does not want to take a bath. And so that's something that you address with them and say, you know, Johnny, it's important for your health that we have to take baths. And if you don't want to take a bath every day, well, then maybe we can come up with an agreement to take a bath every other day. Or it could be that Johnny's mom just does not have the means to be able to bathe her child every day. It could be that they are homeless. It could be that they don't have a place to be able to shower every day. And so by being able to talk to the family and address these concerns and address, you know, what is presenting in front of you, it could be a way of you being able to offer them services, see what their options are. As mentioned earlier, is that El Paso has a lot of great resources in our community. It's just a matter of providing these families with these resources and letting them know that there is help out there. Some behavioral indicators that you may see in a child that is being abused or neglected is a child that is very wary of adult contact, is apprehensive when other children cry. And one of the reasons you might see this more in your younger children, maybe your pre-K or your kinder through first or second. And one of the reasons is that they know that if a child is crying, something bad is happening, and that's how they associate it. They are not realizing that maybe the child is just missing their mom, or the child has just fallen and hurt themselves. All they know is that a child is crying, and whenever a child is crying, something bad happens. They might be exhibiting behavioral extremes such as aggression or withdrawal. You know, a lot of times we want to be able to put off the aggressive child or the bad child as a behavioral problem. Oh, he's the behavioral problem, you know, he just doesn't have any discipline. But for me, and what I see in my clinic and my experience in this, is that there's always an underlying issue that is happening with this child and possibly in their families. It could be that this child just is not able to express themselves as to what they are fearing, what they are feeling, what they are afraid of, what they are worried of, what their anxiety is. They are not able to say, you know, today I'm having a bad day because I'm scared because my dad didn't come home last night. So these extreme behavioral factors that they're exhibiting could be stemming from something else. If a child is afraid to go home, that's also a red flag. If the child has problems with peers, or the child themselves report injury, it could be that coming back, now that these children are coming out of this social isolation, they are now coming back to school. They are now seeing their teachers and their coaches and their mentors, and they are now returning to a safe place. It could be that this child, within the next few weeks or months, and they have built a rapport with you and they feel safe, might disclose some information to you. And so they themselves will report their injury to you, and that is their way of saying, I need help, I need you to protect me, and I'm letting you know because I feel safe with you. Next slide. So what can we do if we do have a child that feels confident enough and shares with us that they are being abused or possibly neglected? So whenever you suspect a child is being physically abused, sexually abused, or neglected, you want to be able to make a report. You do not have to know that the abuse is definitely occurring. If you have a suspicion, that is enough for you to be able to report. Who is a mandated reporter? We are all mandated reporters here in Texas. I know that there is sometimes a misconception about Child Protective Services, but one of the things that I let our parents know here in clinic is that CPS can also be an added resource. They can assist with housing. They can assist with WIC and food stamps. They can assist with childcare. They can assist with whatever it is that the family is in need of, so that we are able to provide whatever resources we need for the family as a whole, so that they themselves can become better providers and parents for their children. It's not just for the children, it's the family as a whole. I know sometimes we don't want to report because we are, you know, well, what if there isn't any abuse? What if we're wrong? But the thing is that what if we're not wrong? What if there is something going on? Or what if we report and it's a way of prevention? A way of prevention by being able to assist this family, and therefore reducing some of the risk factors, reducing some of the stressors that this family is undergoing, and therefore we have then reduced the ability of any probable child maltreatment from occurring. So if a child makes an outcry to you or shares something with you, as a professional, we have 48 hours to be able to report the abuse. And we can call it, I put the 1-800 number. Now remember, it is kept confidential. They are not, the family does not know who made the report. And at the end, you do not have to know that abuse is definitely occurring. If you have a concern, if you have a suspicion, then I highly encourage you to be able to report. So some other factors to consider when kids are coming back to school is school has now changed. What if you have some kids that are returning and they have already known how school used to be, they now know that it's not the normal school environment. The schedules and routines are different. For example, maybe they were going to music class. They were leaving their classroom to go to music class. They were leaving their classroom to be able to go to art class. But now that is different. The routine has changed. They are now to stay in their classroom the entire time. That's something different for them. They have limited peer contact. They have less contact with teachers, coaches, mentors, etc. So that is going to be a big change for these children returning to school. And for faculty and staff, it's also going to be a change for you as a teacher, for you as an administrator, as a counselor, whatever your role is. It's something different for everybody that is returning to school. This may lead to some extreme behavioral changes. Keep in mind, kids don't know how sometimes to express themselves. And so the reactions are due to an increase of stress, of fear, anxiety. And this may arise due to the changes in a familiar routine that makes them feel less safe and secure. And that could be for everybody. That could be for adults and children. And there's nothing wrong with saying we are all in this together. We are all adapting to this together, but our safety and our well-being is priority, and that's what matters. We are all doing this together. We know that this has all changed for all of us, but we together will get through this. I have a thing that I let our parents know is if you are open to your children, if you communicate with them at their level, children are receptive. They will follow your lead. They will listen to you, and they will trust in you that what you are telling them is for their best interest. So my main recommendation is just to be open with children, be honest with them, and let them know that this is also something new and different for you, but together you can get through it.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Velas. Thank you for being here and representing El Paso Children's Hospital. Next, Kathy, or am I right now? Is it Optimus Revtak here?
Here and ready to go. Thanks, Dr.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to express my gratitude to colleagues at the MCA Foundation, my esteemed panelists, and to all of you participants, colleagues, fellow parents, members of our community here today. It's a privilege to be here on behalf of the El Paso Child Guidance Center, all of my colleagues that are here serving the community. We are a community-based mental health agency, and we have been in the community for over 4 decades. I'm really pleased to report that that we have survived and thrived during COVID and have made a really successful transition in order to make all of our support services for children, youth, their families, and all those who support and serve them available virtually. So what I wanted to communicate before we move into discussion is that we are here for you. We are here for you as parents. We are here for you as educators and school staff, and we are here for you as school and district leaders and a community working to make this transition successful. Quickly, I wanted to highlight the fact that we do have a very highly trained clinical staff available, a staff of mental health professionals available to provide individual counseling, family counseling, and also group counseling. We accept Medicaid, many forms of private insurances, and in this time, in this current time of living under this pandemic, we have several grants that we've received from the federal, state governments and private foundations that are allowing us to provide many of our very specialized services for special populations and needs totally free of charge. So there are group and individual services available to anyone in the community who feels like they've been affected by some of these stressors of COVID. For anyone who has been affected by the impacts of the August 3rd, 2019 mass shooting. Of course, we just passed the first anniversary, and I wanted to let you all know that we continue to have free services available for those affected in any way. And finally, we have an expanded team of child and adolescent psychiatrists available through our clinic locations in partnership with Texas Tech to provide child and adolescent psychiatric services. We have immediate openings for those psychiatric services. If you move on to the next slide, I also wanted to let you know that we have a number of services that are available in the form of mental health education and also wellness-oriented services, like those that my colleague, Ms. Nevarez, described. We have groups, support groups that parents or educators can drop into that are focused on coping with stress and trauma, cultivating and building our own resilience. We have workshops, mental health education workshops that are available, some for the public. In these days, and perhaps relevant to this audience, many school districts have called on us to provide short lunch and learns, professional development workshops and dialogues with their school staff and educators at various districts. So we have those resources available, as well as training and information on trauma-informed care. So there's contact information, handles for our social media, and of course you can connect with us via our website, epcgc.org. Thank you all for creating space for us to join you today. It's a privilege.
Great, thank you, Ms. Revtek, for being here today and representing the El Paso Child Guidance Center. Now, it's my pleasure to hand this school reopening and its impact on mental health session over to Josie Angerstein Guzman, who will serve as the moderator for some discussion and question and answer. Josie, take it away.
All right, thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be the moderator for this session. I'm honored because, of course, we all know how important this is. So if you guys are ready, we'll get right to the questions, and I'll be asking the panelists specific questions. And again, at the end, if you do have any questions, please make sure to put those in the chat, and we will certainly get to those if we do have time. But we'll start with Kathy. What are some of the best ways for teachers and other school staff to give emotional and/or behavioral support to their students?
First, let me begin by saying I have so many colleagues who are educators and administrators in the school systems, and I just want to honor everything that you're doing during this time of great adaptation. The resilience that you all are demonstrating is just incredible and inspiring as a colleague and as a parent in the field. I think a few things that I would say in terms of giving emotional and behavioral support. And ultimately that is to do what educators do best. First of all, stay relationally focused. We know that relationships are the building blocks of resilience. So when you're open, when you're authentic, and when you make personal connections with your students, you're not only helping to create an environment of trust and transparency, but you're literally helping to rewire their brains. The second thing I would say is be creative about how to do that. Again, I'm a parent of 3 children in school right now, and I am so impressed by the creativity that educators are demonstrating in leveraging technology to reach out in creative ways to relationship build. So whether that's through apps, through personal messages, through involving the parent and caregivers, really leverage all that creativity that I see so present amongst educators. The third thing I would say is stay focused on communication. Verbal communication means so much. And while it's not ideal, or at least it's different through these virtual platforms, you can see so much non-verbally. You can see and observe so many things in the environment. You can see appearance and affect and posture and whatnot. Listen to all those nonverbal cues, because everything that a child does is communication. So stay attuned to that communication. I think the fourth thing I would say, and again, like I've learned so much from my fellow educators, is lean in to that social emotional literacy that so many of your districts are just phenomenal at doing. And in essence, that's about building emotional literacy and interweaving that emotional literacies through everything throughout the day. So that morning circle, what's a word to check in about how you're doing, or post an emoji, right? That visualizes or represents how you're feeling. All of that is building emotional literacy, along with creating space and validating emotional expressions. It's great when kids name their feelings. And so as adults, sometimes we need to watch ourselves and try not to minimize their feelings, or maybe try and fix their feelings or change their feelings. You know, as said earlier, this time is one of much emotionality, and there's room for all of it right now. So when we validate and create space for youth to express their emotions in ways that make sense to them, verbally, non-verbally, creatively through their body, we're creating the space for the relational building blocks. Two more things I would say. One is to continue to incorporate naturally self-regulating exercises into the day. In this new world, we are all adults and children, we're glued to screens all day. The simple activity as an educator of having your child or youth do something standing, or have a body movement that's connected to that, or pausing in the middle or at the end of a lesson to take a few deep breaths, right? Or to have them grab something sensorially and tell you what's going on in the environment. All of that is naturally self-regulating and will serve the emotional and behavioral well-being of the child or the youth. And the last thing I would say, which I think maybe might be the most important part of my answer, is we have to practice what we preach. We are really challenged to help the children and the youth in our care self-regulate or be in the green zone, be in that place where they can learn. We're really challenged to do that if we're not there in that space ourselves. So I would gently remind all of us to be compassionate with ourselves, the fact that this is hard work doing these services virtually, that we're all making this up as we go at some level out of these deep wells of our experience, but making sure that before we go in front of the screen with the children and youth in our care, that we're in our green zone, that we're self-regulated, because we can't we can't expect our children to demonstrate that if they're not being if that isn't being modeled for them, and the safe environment for them to be regulated is not being held. So those are a few quick tips that I would give.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ms. Kathy. I do agree that social and emotional component is so important, and us modeling for our kids. That's very important too. Thank you so much for your answer. Dr. Velas, how can schools provide social and emotional support for students who perhaps have lost a family member or a friend or experienced a major illness during COVID-19?
So I think one of the first things is to address how they're feeling. You know, I'm sorry for your loss. How are you feeling? Do you have any fears? Are you afraid that you're going to get sick and something's going to happen to you and your family? That could be the main thing that they're focusing on, not so much understanding the loss, but the fact that I'm back in school, am I going to get sick? Am something bad happen to me? If mom and dad are returning to work, are they going to get sick and something bad happen to them? So I think it's addressing their fears and then letting them know that you are doing everything to be able to maintain their safety. The importance of good hand washing, that's the reason why they're wearing their mask, the social distancing, but it's mainly focusing in on what is their concern. Is it that because of the loss, or they now fear that they can now catch the virus because they are now in school and out, as opposed to when they were socially isolated at home, or possibly a family member, their mom, their dad, you know, grandma, grandpa, whoever has now returned to work, their fear of them catching the virus. So that's how I would go about addressing it.
Thank you so much. Ms. Celeste, can you please share some advice on how to appropriately give social and emotional support to students, either one-on-one or as a group?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I love that you all have SEL in schools. I was so ecstatic when that started, and that it continues to be a building block of the work that you all do. I have to be honest, I didn't share this earlier, but I also teach at UTEP, and I've never taught a full semester online like this. And so it is tough, and we are all in this together. So when we talk to our students, it's important to know that children and adults process things very differently. So if we're speaking to our student, understanding that perspective is a product of experience. And most of our kiddos, depending on their age and depending on their experience, is going to give them that range of perspective. And so if we're talking with, you know, a kindergartner who's only been on this beautiful planet for 5-6 years, they don't have that experience to draw from when talking about a global pandemic. Now, I know I'm however many years old, and I have tried to pull from my own experiences. I've never been through a global pandemic or quarantine before in my life, but I can pull from my experiences and things that I've done in my career or things I've overcome as an adult, and recognizing that kiddos might not have those experiences to pull from in order to gain that perspective. So if they feel or say, everything is awful, or I miss my friends, and I just feel like the world around me is crumbling, it's because they're pulling from that experience and that perspective that they don't have and we do. So it's important to, when we're speaking with them, not to say, well, it's going to be fine and we'll get through this, right? And because you know that as an adult, you know that we can do this, we'll figure it out. You all are doing it now. But they don't have that to pull from. So a lot of patience, a lot of kindness, and then giving them that space to feel whatever they're feeling. Like, I just feel like everything is the worst. Like, tell me about that. Tell me, you know, have you ever felt like everything is the worst before? And how did you get through that? And allowing those emotions, because they are creating experiences right now in order to gain that perspective for the future. So we are building resilient children right now. And so by allowing them and giving them that permission and that space to just feel, we're actually helping create resilient children for the future, which is amazing. And what you all do as educators, and just remembering we can do hard things. We can do it together.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that answer. Kathy, going back to you, how should schools provide support to children with anxiety, depression, social isolation, anger, family or home stress, or neglect and abuse?
Sorry, I was having a little bit of trouble getting my mute button off. Again, I just want to start reframe the question just a little bit and start from acknowledging how much schools are already doing. I don't know that I have a should in terms of what I think schools should be doing, but what I want to say to my fellow educators and leaders in the districts is part of this work is done in partnership through a whole child, whole family, whole community approach. So when I think about what we can do in partnership to support schools, supporting children with some of these needs, I would say a few things. One, I would say any sort of awareness building, training information that we can give school-wide or district-wide to teachers, to all school staff. Everyone who's direct facing with children and families is pretty essential. We are proponents of a trauma-informed approach, again, which is that whole child, whole family, whole community approach. And with a trauma-informed lens, we understand that the pandemic, living under COVID, can and often does produce a stress response in a child or an adolescent. And it can also produce that stress response in the family, in the home environment where the child is living. So that stress response has a whole child impact. Mind, body, spirit, relational, social impact. And so at some level, we need all of our staff to know that that stress response is being generated amongst our youth. And that knowledge requires that we modify how we behave and interact with children and youth, particularly under the pandemic right now. So specifically, the understanding that we're going for is that for children who've had a prior experience or who are currently exposed to trauma or some other mental health condition, the pandemic in these circumstances has the potential to make things worse, particularly in terms of some of the symptoms or the behaviors that we see. So we need to stay attentive and sensitive to the fact that a large number of our children have had some sort of previous exposure, and the current circumstances, in addition to some of the threats to sort of basic emotional and physical safety, are making things difficult or more challenging for some of our children and youth. So again, equipping our staff school-wide, district-wide to approach our youth and families through a trauma-informed lens is really, really important. Secondly, equipping our staff with the knowledge not to be mental health professionals or behavioral health professionals or medical professionals, but be able to recognize the signs and symptoms of certain markers that indicate that a referral is needed. That's essential. As our panelists have explained, and as I know, through ongoing collaboration with partners in the community, there are so many resources out in the community. We are here to partner with schools and to be available. So knowing when to make a referral is essential. I would also say it is really important. I want to underscore some of the points that Dr. Velas made earlier in the presentation. To be able to recognize signs of abuse, of some sort of neglect, and to mobilize, make that call when mandatory reporting is required. And finally, I would say, again, call on those of us in the community to partner organization to organization, system to system, to build bridges between the schools and the school districts, as well as the mental health and behavioral community, so that we're aligning all of our resources to be of best service to those who are serving and working with youth directly every day.
Thank you so much for your answer. Dr. Velas, and I think this is geared more towards the adults that are going to be providing services for kids, but what mental health or emotional support should be given to our teachers and principals, our school nurses, coaches, and other campus personnel?
So I think it's just as important to be able to, as colleagues, as peers, to look out for one another also. And this is going to be a change not only, as I mentioned, for the children, but for the teachers, the coaches, the nurses, everybody that's in the school. Now, one of the things that I can see might also be difficult for them is you know, they're used to kids going up to them and the hugs and the high fives and the interacting more with their children. And so now they're going to have to, you know, step back a little bit, have that social distancing, and that might be difficult for them, because I feel that maybe it might come across as you know, kind of shunning away from them, and the students not understanding. But I think just the open communication with children, you know, air high fives, you know, air hugs, you know, just coming up with different methods of still being able to engage with the children and with colleagues and, you know, teachers. You know, sometimes their support system is their neighbor next door, you know, the teacher that's next door to them, and still being able to have that interaction. So I think for your colleagues, it's a matter of looking out for each other. You know, I see, you know, is everything okay? How are you doing? How are you adapting to this? And just like we look out for our children, we need to look out for each other. And if we notice something wrong with one another, there's nothing wrong with addressing it, approaching them, and if need be, going, you know, further to where you reach out to an administrator or whatever it is. I mean, it's going to be difficult for everybody as a whole. But we're looking for our teachers to kind of hold it together and you know, set the foundation for everybody. And it might be a lot, and that will affect their mental health well-being. And so just having that open communication and looking out for each other, and that to me will trickle down to the children. You know, if for me, just like I mentioned to the parents, if you're doing good and your child sees that you're doing good, they'll do good. You know, it's as a whole. So at the school, that's their whole, you know, for that environment. So it's just a matter of really looking out for each other and not being afraid to say, you know, I see that, you know, something's not right, or are you doing okay? Just checking in.
I know that's a big challenge that teachers are going to have, because the first reaction kids are going to have to each other is to want to hug each other. And so I know that's going to be very difficult, but thank you for that advice. Ms. Velas, can you share some ideas on respite care for overwhelmed parents? I know that's something that's going on heavily throughout the country, I'm sure.
And you can see it in the commercials that we're seeing right now. I know I've been seeing the like fruit bowl ones where the parents like hide and they're eating by themselves, right? So clearly this is universal, which I'm not trying to sell fruit bowls, but I am trying to make sure that everybody recognizes that that is a real thing. And I think there can be potential for shame in that, right? Like, well, I don't want to complain that my kids are at home, or I don't want to complain that my kids are at home and healthy and safe and with me, but Jesus, just give me a minute to breathe, right? And I just, my hat's off, parents right now more than ever are everything, the school nurse while we're at home, and as we shift back, it's going to be a little bit of everything still, but you all are wearing a bunch of different hats, a bunch of different roles, and that is exhausting. And so it is okay to take a breath and breathe and recognize that this is hard and it is a lot of work. And yes, we, you know, signed up for it as parents, but man, I don't think anybody signed up for all of this, right? So one of the things at CCP, the program I mentioned earlier, those counselors are dedicated to that. I actually had the joy of being on a panel 2 weeks ago with a group of veterans, and one of the moms in the back raised her hand and was like, can I just call and vent if I just need a minute? And I said, yes, absolutely. She said, I'm a single mom, I'm doing it all, and I just sometimes just want to talk to another adult and just sort of vent. And I said, please call us. This is a judgment-free zone for you to be able to just express all of that frustration in a safe, contained space, because we'd rather you call us and talk it through with us, right, than have to go through the route of abuse. And we're in another situation. Now we've got other people involved. If a quick 15-minute vent session is all you need, we are here to listen to that. CCP is designed for that. It does not have to be full on traditional, you know, mental health therapy where there's an assessment and an intake and diagnosis. This COVID hotline is just for that. So I invite all parents and educators that need that respite to just give us a call. And then we can even walk through maybe what our options are. Do we have grandparents that we can help, you know, watch the kiddos for a little bit? Or what are our choices? What are the community resources that we can get you connected to? And we can do that as well on the phone. But I invite you to please utilize that hotline. It does not have to be a crisis. It could just be a parent needing a venting session, and we're here for that too.
That's great. Thank you so much. Well, we are pretty much close to the end of our session, but I did want to give you guys an opportunity if you have any closing remarks.
I just want to thank all our educators for this role. You know, I think in these past months we've heard about first responders and healthcare providers and stuff, but it's our educators that are going to be welcoming back our children during these scary times. And as a mother myself, knowing that you guys are taking all these measures to be able to ensure the safety of my child returning to school allows me to have some peace of mind, so that when I do come to work, I know that my kids are taken care of. And it's just a matter of open communication with your children, letting them know kids are receptive, kids are resilient, and they will follow you. If you take the lead, they will follow. And just thank you. And we're here if anybody has any questions, if a family that you feel might benefit from our resources, you're not quite sure about, you know, CPS yet, but you know that the family is in need. Here at El Paso Children's Hospital, the CARES Clinic, we're available. We're here for them. So.
I'll just echo that and thank everyone for their time today, for the resilience that they continue to demonstrate and model for our children and youth. Thank you all.
Thank you all so much for your time and your attention. I'm just thankful that people are utilizing the resources at hand. All of us sign up for these roles and work for these organizations in order to serve. So please reach out if we can do anything for you and support you in this new time. Thank you.
All right. Michael, if you'd like to close us out.
Sure, our time has come to an end, and I want to thank you all. Ms. Nevarez, Ms. Revtak, Dr. Velas, a special thanks to our moderator, Ms. Ingerstein Guzman, and a super special thanks to the Medical Center of the Americas and Emma Schwartz for coordinating all this, getting people together, and doing the hard work. And finally, a thank you to all the educators out there working hard and caring in this unusual environment. Thank you all, and have a good rest of the day.